Afghanistan holds a history spread over centuries. It is landlocked country bordered by Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, China and Pakistan. Afghanistan is located at the strategic crossroads as connected Iranian Central and East Asian civilizations to India. It is one of the most mountainous countries in the world, as well it is home to a vast network of rivers and fertile valleys. Afghanistan has been invaded by British forces 3 times, which ended with British withdrawal. Amanullah Khan reigned in Afghanistan from 1919, achieving full independence from the British Empire shortly afterwards. Afghanistan had already begun to establish its own foreign policy, including diplomatic relations with the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic in 1919. During the 1920s, Afghanistan established diplomatic relations with most major countries. Russians were the smart choice at that time, for the King Amanullah Khan to sought help not for deterrence sake but also to gradually make Afghanistan strong in various fields. As the Union was declared in 1922, Afghanistan was the first country which recognized USSR and established diplomatic relation. Amanullah is remembered for his reforms, most notably of which are equal rights for women and freedom of press. His transforming social and educational reforms included, adopting the solar calendar, requiring Western dress in parts of Kabul and elsewhere, discouraging the veiling of women. He established an air force. His economic reforms included restructuring, reorganizing, and rationalizing the entire tax structure, anti-smuggling and anti-corruption campaigns, a livestock census for taxation purposes, establishing the Bank-i-Milli, National Bank, in 1928, and introducing the Afghani as the new unit of currency in 1923. The political and judicial reforms Amanullah proposed were equally radical for the time: guarantee of civil rights, national registration and identity cards, the establishment of a legislative assembly, a court system to enforce new secular penal, civil and commercial codes, and abolition of subsidies and privileges for tribal chiefs and the royal family. During Amanullah's visit to Europe, opposition to his rule increased to the point that an uprising in Jalalabad started. In January 1929, Amanullah abdicated and went into temporary exile in then British India. Habibullah Khalaqani, leader of the Sekhtaists, took over. He spent rest of his life in Italy and died there. Few say he died in Zurich, Switzerland. However, his body was brought to Afghanistan and was buried in Jalalabad. The rule of Khalaqani did not last much. Nader Shah, who was a cousin of King Amanullah, returned to Afghanistan with his army of Mursud and Wazir tribesmen and took most of Afghanistan. By October 13, 1929, forces loyal to Nader captured Kabul and subsequently sacked the city. He captured Khalaqani and executed him by firing squad. As Shah of Afghanistan, Nader Khan quickly abolished most of Amanullah Khan's reforms. He faced numerous rebellion movements. However, by the end of 1931 most uprisings had been subdued. Nader Khan selected a 10-member cabinet and promulgated a new constitution. He improved road construction, communication, and helped establish Afghanistan's first university in 1931. He re-established commercial links with the same foreign powers that Amanullah had established. He initiated a banking system and long-range economic planning. Although his efforts to improve the army did not bear fruit immediately, by the time of his death in 1933 Nader Shah had created a 40,000-strong military force. On November 8, 1933, Nader Khan was visiting a high school and was shot dead by Abdul Khalik during a graduation ceremony. His 19-year-old son, Mohammad Zahir, succeeded to the throne and reigned from 1933 to 1973. As per the history, Zahir Shah also faced resistance in various areas of Afghanistan. In 1953, Mohammad Daoud Khan, the king's cousin and brother-in-law, joined the government as prime minister. Daoud looked for a closer relationship with the Soviet Union and a more distant one towards Pakistan. However, disputes with Pakistan led to an economic crisis and he was asked to resign in 1963. From 1963 until 1973, Zahir Shah took a more active role. In 1964, King Zahir Shah promulgated a liberal constitution. Although Zahir's experiment in democracy produced few lasting reforms, it permitted the growth of parties on both the left and the right. This also provided chance to Kremlin to seat in Communist Party, resultantly People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan, PDPA, appeared on the political sphere. King Zahir Shah was ousted by his cousin Daoud Khan in 1973 while he was in Italy. Daoud abolished the monarchy and declared Afghanistan a republic with himself as its first president and prime minister. His attempts to carry out badly needed economic and social reforms met with little success, and the new constitution promulgated in February 1977 failed to quell chronic political instability. On April 28, 1978, Nur Mohammad Tariqi, Babrak Karmal and Amin Taha overthrew the government of Mohammad Daoud, who was assassinated along with all his family members in a bloody military coup. The coup is known as the Saur Revolution. Tariqi became head of state. Tariqi implemented a Marxist, Leninist agenda to replace religious and traditional laws. Men were obliged to cut their beards, women could not wear a chador, and mosques were placed off limits. The PDPA made a number of pro-Soviet reforms and promoted state atheism. The PDPA let the Soviets free to do anything under caption of assistance and development projects. USSR provided $1.262 billion in aid. PDPA imprisoned, tortured, or murdered thousands of its opponents from ordinary Afghans to mujahideen. The pro-Marxist, Leninist, anti-Islam government, coupled with its heavy dependence on the Soviet Union, led to open revolt in the whole country. Over half of the Afghan army would either desert or join the insurrection. In September 1979, Hafizullah Amin, the prime minister, removed Tariqi and took hold of Afghanistan. Tariqi was imprisoned by Amin and later suffocated to death there. Hafizullah Amin followed the same brutal strategy, now included the Tariqi followers. Approximately 50 people used to be executed daily in Pul-e-Charkha prison of Kabul. However, Hafizullah Amin was not eyed as reliable ally by Moscow. Meanwhile, Kremlin had reached to a deal with Babrak Karmal from the Parcham faction of PDPA. The Soviet Union decided to intervene on December 27, 1979. The USSR invaded Afghanistan, killed Hafizullah Amin and installed Babrak Karmal. Check our vlogs about Operation Storm 333 for detailed information on Amin's assassination by Soviets. Links are given in the description. In response to the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan, US, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan began arming and training the Afghan mujahideen. Recent reports state that the US and Saudi Arabia provided as much as up to $40 billion in cash and weapons. All this was handled by Pakistan's ISI. Throughout his term, Karmal worked to establish a support base for the PDPA by introducing several reforms. However, his policies failed to increase the PDPA's legitimacy among masses. He was seen as a Soviet puppet. The Soviet Union deposed Karmal in 1986 and installed Dr. Najibullah. Karmal was again exiled, this time to Moscow. In 1996, Karmal died from liver cancer. International pressure mounted enormously, coupled with the fact the Soviets were failing to overcome Mujahideen's resistance as well as the economic meltdown back in Moscow were the major reasons due to which troops were withdrawn in 1989. During Najib's tenure, Soviets began their withdrawal. his government tried to solve the ongoing civil war. Though he was still supported with economic and military aid, while Pakistan continued their support for the Mujahideens. Najib tried to win support via the national reconciliation reforms by distancing from socialism, letting non-communists join the government. He made Islam an official religion. Since he was also considered the Soviets' installed puppet, he failed to win support even after huge reforms. Following the dissolution of the Soviet Union in December 1991, Najibullah was left out. Same happened to Najib, which usually happens with puppets when master falls. Najib had to resign in April 1992. In 1996, he was killed by the Taliban. Civil War. Afghanistan went under civil war after resignation of Najib. All those who fought to defend against USSR were fighting with one another to seize power. Each group was supported by various foreign powers. After the fall of Kabul to the Taliban on September 27, 1996, Ahmad Shah Massoud and Abdul Rashid Dostum, two former enemies, created the United Front, also called Northern Alliance, against the Taliban. Taliban regime ended with US-led NATO invasion of Afghanistan in 2001. Northern Alliance allied with US and another 20 years wasted into a devastating war coupled with new puppets. Fate of US and NATO was no different than USSR, and Taliban seized power of Afghanistan in just 11 days, even before the date of US withdrawal. Today we there rule in Kabul with 100% control on Afghanistan, unlike previous tenure. That's all, dear viewers. Hope you would have liked the information.